explain myself.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of DGXM podcast with Rock and Dea. We're so excited to bring you today yet another trailblazer in the Albanian community in the diaspora. Now from the UK, we're getting international, making our way to Europe, to Albania, and slowly to every other continent. His name is Endrit. Endrit is here today to tell us a bit about his story and journey in the real estate scene in the UK and what motivated him to kind of find that journey and find himself within that space as well. So, welcome to the show, Endrit.
Thanks for having me. I look forward to sharing my story with you guys as well.
He's straight from the financial capital, as you can tell from his background, the property coterie. Am I pronouncing that right?
Poetry.
Coterie, obviously not from the UK, from the UK. There we go.
I swear the English have like the coolest accent.
They
of all
really
time.
do. In fact, when we started the show, he hopped on
I
the show
love
and
it.
he's like, "Hey everyone, how are you?" And I'm like, "Oh my goodness, what?"
It makes me feel like I'm the honorable guest, not
Not
him.
formal enough, but Madrid,
I love it.
we're so happy to have you here today. And I think one of the first questions on our mind is what brought you to the UK? Because we've had so many stories of Albanians that, ventured to the US as early as the 80s, 90s, and later on, but we haven't spoken about the immigration waves of Albanians to the UK. So when did you move to the UK and how was that journey inspired?
Yeah, so it's actually my family who moved first back in 1999 during when the Kosovan War was, and they decided to move to the UK. We had some family members here, so they got together here in the UK, and then I was born, so I didn't have to go through that whole journey of coming here from Kosovo from the war. So I mean, I didn't really decide to come to the UK. I was born in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
So that's sort of
That's a good
my
answer.
background.
So
Yeah.
is that a lucky thing or an unlucky thing? I don't know.
Well, during that time, I would say it's a lucky thing. I avoided that time trying to come to the UK. It wasn't a plane journey, so it took quite a while to
Yeah,
get here.
right. And
Understood. Understood.
we've had many people that spoke to us about their experience post war in Kosovo, but also post civil conflict in Albania as well. And we really honor those stories and people's ability to speak about them, especially on a public platform. It helps everyone actually. But okay, so you were born in the UK, and of course, cultural differences, especially from a family that immigrated maybe in the 90s. Where did you grow up? Where did you settle in the UK? And how was it like growing up as an Albanian Brit?
Okay, I'll give you a bit of backstory so this all makes sense. So when my family came to the UK, it they had to, invest quite a lot of money to get here. So they actually came here with £14,000 in debt coming to the UK, and then we
Back in the
started off
day.
from completely scratch. Back in the day, we're talking 1999,
Mm.
and when they came, they were already in debt, didn't speak the language, so we didn't really choose where we want to live. There's something called council housing here in the UK
Yeah.
where
Mhm.
the government gives you support, gives you a place to sleep, and then that's sort of the base of where we came. We moved houses over 11 times as a
Wow.
family.
Wow.
We didn't get to decide on, where we want to live. It was just sort of wherever they put us
Mhm.
until we got permanent residence, and then, stabilized, worked, saved up money, and then got into the real estate market, which we'll get into as well.
Sure. Okay.
Is that more like what Section 8 is here in the United States, there
Or I think it's government supported housing, correct?
yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
Essentially.
Yeah,
And from what I understand, council houses in the UK are available to UK citizens as well who are in need of council houses, but I think also for newly arrived immigrants. I think it's received some tension recently, but it's always been a program that the UK has been known for, similar to our subsidized housing in the US as well. I think
Okay.
that's a really great story. And I think it speaks to the story of many Albanians who had difficulty starting up in a new place and didn't come with the riches of the world, but it says more to the hustle and the journey afterwards, which brings you to where you are today. And can you explain to us exactly what you do?
So I do a strategy called rent to rent. It's in the UK. I think in the US, some people call it Airbnb arbitrage. That's one way of doing it. And then there's another way where you sublet rooms individually. So to explain it in the most simple terms, Rock is a landlord. He's got a 4-bedroom house with 2 reception rooms or 2 living rooms, however you want to call it. So I will then rent this property off Rock for £2,000, let's say. Right. So I've rented this property off of Rock. I said, I'm going to manage the property. I'm going to take care of all the maintenance and the cleaning, just completely take care of the property and guarantee the rent every single month.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first step. The second step is then I will then rent each room for this simple exercise. I'm going to say each room rents for £1,000.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
I'll convert the 2 reception rooms into bedrooms. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So those reception, by convert, I mean put a bed in there. You don't need to really do much.
Make
right?
them spaces where one can sleep. Okay.
Exactly. That's what I mean by convert. Now I've got 6 rooms. I will apply for a license if it doesn't have a license already, called a HMO license in the UK. And as soon as you apply, a lot of people don't know this, but as soon as you apply, you can actually rent it out immediately rather than waiting to get approved for the license. Even if it gets refused, you can appeal it for up to 3 years. Anyway, not to get into all that detail, I'll rent each room for £1,000, which is £6,000, right? £6,000 minus the rent I'm paying to Rock, that's £4,000. 6,000 minus 2,000. And then I've got bills, voids, and maintenance that I'll include in my costs. If I want to be conservative with my numbers, I'll calculate that £850. There's a calculation to do this. You have to go and look at what the bills are and, calculate your voids and management costs. But just for this exercise, 850. So if I put that in the calculator, so we've got £6,000 minus £2,000 minus 850, you're left with a net profit of £3,150 per month, every single month.
On just one unit.
On just one unit. Now, some units, I would say the average is about £1,000 you'll make on a property. But this is very possible. I've done many properties with profits of this and even more. And that's sort of the business model, but you don't have to put a big deposit to purchase the property to get that cash flow. You're just leveraging someone else's property and profiting from it.
Okay. So, Rock, before I go into my splurge of questions, do you want to start it off with some questions you may have?
Go ahead. What are your questions? I'm listening right now. I'm kind of learning.
Cool. And that will maybe inspire more. So first of all, Endrit, you're speaking my language of numbers. I like the calculations. And I think beyond the numbers, what you're describing is a concept here. A concept of liquidity and gaining monthly income that can then put you in a position to make even larger investment. We often see discussions online or even with your accountant or the people in your community, why some people are able to build generational wealth and some others that maybe make even higher monthly income have a harder time doing it. And I think a big portion of it doesn't have to do with how intellectual or sharp a person is, but really the information that they have available to them and their ability to act on that information. So I really like that you outlined this process. Now, when you explain it step by step, you're like, oh, that sounds pretty easy, anyone could do it. But then you go to the application and searching for the homes and then writing the contracts and then also understanding that every city is kind of understanding this game and they're putting up their own regulations to make Airbnb and arbitrage a bit more difficult, so to say. So then you have to find different ways to go around those new regulations or work with them and incorporate them into your game plan as well. So I think if you had your first property, the first property that you did, and you could go back and kind of redo that deal, what would you do different?
I wouldn't do anything different. And the reason I say that is because I had a mentor who already had a portfolio of 27 properties, and I worked with them directly and learned directly from them. So with his guidance and mentorship, I was able to secure the properties and do it correctly the first time. And this is what I see quite often, is that many people go into, business, especially real estate or property. And if you're going into a 5-year fixed contract or a 3-year fixed contract and you're not sure on what you're doing, if you make a mistake, it could be very costly. But at the same time, if you understand the business model, it's very unlikely to make a mistake because it's very simple once you understand it. So I would say, in terms of advice, always find someone that has done it, knows what they're doing, and then follow the same steps.
Well, what was one of the easiest, or one of the easiest and one of the hardest, I guess, situations you've ever come across while doing this?
Oh, that's a good question. So it ties into one of my other businesses as well. Is when I was running my rent to rent. It was sort of towards the start of my journey. I had four or five rental properties at the time. But that in cash flow, in terms of turnover, that was turning over 20,000 a month. Okay. Those properties, actually quite probably a lot more, around the 30,000 mark every single month. So what happened was, and it's happened to a lot of my friends as well, I'm not sure why these things happen, but the banks, they wanted to do an investigation into, where all this money's coming from, because it went from not earning any money, or like 2,000 a month, to suddenly there's 30,000 of cash flow within a space of 6 months, going in and out of the account every month. So what happened was, all of my accounts got frozen, every single bank account.
Wow.
And they said they're investigating my accounts, and that process took 3 months to solve. So I had all of the tenants complaining, they can't send me money, I can't pay the rent either. So what I was thinking, what can I do? What's the solution to this problem? I can't use a bank account. This is a big issue. And I could lose all of my whole portfolio, because I don't own the properties. So that's when I decided. I actually had one Albanian guy, his name's Roland, contact me, and he wanted me to mentor him. So to bring the story short, I decided to mentor him for a fee. He paid me £3,000 at the time to show him how to do this business model. And I said, okay, cool. So if I can generate some sales and put that in my dad's card, I can pay my rents. So I started a mentorship company teaching people how to do the strategies by force, so I don't lose my portfolio. And I managed to pull it off. Within the first month, I generated enough sales to get me through to the next month. And then I continue to run both businesses at the same time. But that was the hardest challenge by far.
I think that's really crazy. Interesting, but also it's really ingenious, and it shows to how entrepreneurs are just supposed to adapt at no matter what challenge is thrown their way. And something as big of a roadblock as having your bank accounts like frozen can lead you into a new opportunity or a new business opportunity. So I'm glad you kind of turned that story around and you've seen like that kind of personality. But I think my question is, when you had this idea to go and find these properties, how difficult was it to negotiate the contract with the actual owner? Because you have to disclose up front, I'm renting it to make profit. How does that conversation go like?
That is the hardest part of the business. So perfect question. Negotiating with an agent or a landlord to take their property on and rent it as a company is very difficult due to people with a lack of experience that have got involved in the business and they messed it up. It cost the agency and the landlords thousands, we're talking hundreds of thousands of pounds or dollars in the US. And that's caused resistance with landlords, and they just want they just want it to be, give it to a family. They've not had an issue with that. So they'd rather do that. So the positioning that you need to find in terms of securing a rental property is, how can I show that I will be paying the rent? How can I show that I will be looking after the property? And that's a skill. You're going to need to know how to convince the agent or convince the landlord that you are going to look after their property and you are going to pay the rent on time and make sure the property is looked after. That just needs to be structured. All of this is simple once you understand it. I want to make that clear. It's not that you don't need to be a world-class negotiator, even though if you are, it will be much more helpful. But you don't need to be good at sales. You just need to, at the beginning, do high volume. High volume, show that you are willing to go that extra step and make sure the property will be looked after. It's about having these conversations and meeting up with the landlords and showing them that you will be doing your best to look after the property.
Well, what got you motivated to do this, Endrit?
Funny story. I was an electrician before, right?
Oh, my brother's an electrician. That's awesome.
Yeah, I was working long hours. I would say 12-hour night shifts, and it took me 2.5 hours to go to the work to the site and 2.5 hours back. So that's 5 hours of traveling and 12 hours of work. It was quite excessive. So I started working there. I worked for about a year, and then I started realizing the dust was affecting my health because I was drilling holes and pushing cables through. It started to affect my health. So I said to myself, I need to find another route. I need to find a solution. I wasn't good at school. I got very bad grades. I didn't go to uni either. So I wasn't going to do anything academically. I needed to find either a trade or some miracle to get out of this situation. So I got into electrics. I didn't really like it. I had too much dust, and it was affecting my health. That's when I said, okay, what businesses can make me the most money in the UK? The first thing I saw was trading, but I didn't have money to even buy a laptop, or a computer, so I couldn't really do that. The second thing I saw was real estate, property. And it was simply boredom. I sat home for 5 months thinking, just not doing anything at all.
Yeah.
And I'm not the type of person to sit around. I'm very energetic. I like to stay active.
It's very obvious, actually, even through the camera.
So 5 months of not doing anything, I was going to go crazy, and I had to find something. And that's where I went to an event, a seminar, a free seminar for 1 day to learn about a strategy called property sourcing, which is packaging investment deals and selling it onto investors for a fee. And that's where I saw that I have a true passion for real estate. And I would say as soon as I got hooked in with that, there was no stopping. And since then, it's been 9 years now that I've not stopped.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And
Nice,
how
man,
many properties, not that you own, but that you rent through arbitrage, do you have in your portfolio?
Currently none. I've sold off my portfolio.
Okay.
I am now focused on the coaching. I'm coaching others on how to do that. And I also package and sell deals. So these are the focus that I'm in right now is mentoring. I'm mentoring people. I run seminars. I do one-to-one training as well. And I also sell investment deals. And what I'm doing is through my ecosystem, I still have deals coming in to my inbox and agents that I've built relationships with. So students that come into my program, a lot of them want to buy deals. So I've decided rather than taking them on and dealing with the management, I'm sourcing these properties onto the students for a fee, and they're helping them build their portfolios. So that's currently what I'm doing. So it's mentorship and sourcing properties.
And
go ahead, Dea. I was going to say, what's one of the main details that you give some of these new guys that are starting out with you that's like really important? What's something you first, tell them this is what you got to watch out for?
Look like?
Yeah.
Well, step one is quite generic, but mindset, having the right mindset. If you're not motivated and you're not focused on, if you can't stay focused in a business, if you're not enjoying it, then don't get involved. I've rejected many clients as well because I just didn't see the passion in there. If you don't have a passion for what you're doing, don't do it. Simple. Number two is they need practice with a script, some sort of training on speaking to agents and landlords, a structure so that they can follow to convince landlords and agents to give them their properties. But a unique point that I do is I have agents and landlords, I have them contacting my students. I found a way where they don't need to do the hard work of calling the agents and landlords. I've got agents and landlords calling them. And they're just using some of the negotiation tactics that I teach them to get the deal across the line. Another thing that I teach, and that's very effective, is no money down deals. Now, I know you hear this a lot.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as no money down when you don't have any knowledge, because you still need to get the knowledge. But once you understand the business and how to do it, then there is. You can use different types of agreements. In the UK, it's called a license agreement. It's an Airbnb contract. Even if you're doing a HMO, which is houses of multiple occupancy, renting each room out individually for long-term rather than short-term stays, you can still use a license agreement for the first 1 to 3 months just to rent it out temporarily and not have to pay for the HMO license up front.
Okay. And then
no, go ahead, Dave.
Yeah. So once someone is onboarded to your program and they go through your steps, essentially, you don't necessarily promise them that they're going to be successful in their endeavor. The rest is kind of up to them, but you're there to guide them with the steps.
I actually do. I have a 90-day guarantee for if they follow the steps, right? So it's a very simple.
Where did you build your program? Because I feel like I've seen this kind of like click tunnel on Instagram over and over again. And how do you differentiate where are the real programs and where are the scammers? Like, how can people tell so they can choose your program over another one that's maybe very popular but doesn't have the same results?
Look, I think you need to verify if they've actually taken on properties and if they're active in that space. Even though I'm not currently managing any of my own properties currently, I still help manage my students' properties, and we're talking there's tens and tens of properties that are being managed that I'm currently active in and helping them manage, and I'm in the space. I wouldn't say, I think you just need to pick who you prefer, who you can get along with. I don't necessarily tell people to come work with me. If they feel that I'm a good fit to work with them, personality-wise, and we can get along, then go for it. If you feel like you connect better with someone else, go with them. But you need to verify and make sure that they've actually got signed contracts, that they've got properties, not that they say they do. Check it. And if the person teaching you won't show you the contracts and the keys, then don't trust them, because I'm more than happy to share that information.
Have you found it more difficult in this day and age now with the market the way it is, the interest rates everywhere around the world the way they are going higher? Is it getting harder for you guys to do this type of work, or easier, or is there any difficult challenges with all that going on, or no?
There's a lot of mentors out there, which has, because there's so many people trying to do it, it's saturated the market a little bit. But I would say it's not harder. I would say COVID time was the best time. So when things get tough, the rental market is fantastic. It's always a good time. Real estate never dies. It's never died. It never will die. I would say, especially with rentals, you're not buying the property. So whether it goes up or down in value, it doesn't really matter. You're taking advantage of the rents. So the more expensive things get, the more expensive your tenants' rates go, but you've signed a fixed agreement, so you're not paying any more anyway. So all that can happen is you end up making more profit every year.
I like the sound of that.
Okay. I mean, it's definitely eye-catching. And what I find interesting is that although you speak about it with a lot of prominence and attention, you also sold your portfolio. Why did you get out of it instead of increasing that and working on bigger deals or becoming a developer for maybe commercial or larger residence properties?
I got a good offer. That's my answer to that. I wasn't planning to sell it, but I got a very good offer for my portfolio, so
Okay.
I decided to sell it because it was a good enough deal.
Sure. So usually when people sell, a year or two down the line, they're reinvesting into something else. Is that your plan, or do you just want to focus on smaller scale projects now and just kind of like live your life and mentor?
No, don't get me wrong. I'm at the moment, I'm doing the mentorship company, but I'm also sourcing development projects. So
Okay.
the profits in those are quite
Are you
huge.
like a wholesaler or the American equivalent of a wholesaler? A person who finds deals for investors and then
Correct.
sells those deals? Okay.
So I'll
Okay.
give you an
Yes.
example. Actually,
Yeah,
this is not shared much because people don't want to share it, but I'm going to spill
sure.
the beans. One way of sourcing. So let's say you have a property and it's worth 200,000. It's a new development. It's in the second stage or third stage, and the developer they want to exit fast, right? So they're willing to give a discount if you can secure or sell multiple properties for them. You
Hmm.
can't get a much big of a discount on one unit, on
Hmm.
one rent, on one property. But if you secure 10 or 15 or 20 properties and say, I'm going to sell all 20 of them for you, what deal can we get here?
Hmm.
That's when you can bring real discounts up to 50%.
Wow. Hmm.
Right? And once you do that, it's more attractive for the investor. Now, it's called advanced sourcing, this, where you secure a property. Let's say you've got it down from 200 to 100K, right? For one unit. I would say my investors are looking for a 15% discount. So if it's 200K, let's say 15% is what, 20, 30, 25,000, right?
Mhm.
Is that there's the maths genius?
I think you're right there.
Correct.
So
Right.
not the math genius, but
Two
to have a
hundred thousand.
calculator.
Okay, 30,000. Yeah, I was right.
No.
So they want a £30,000 discount. They're happy with that. So I would agree something along the lines of anything above 100, let that be my fee. Don't pay me a fee.
Okay.
Right.
So
So
you
the
can,
difference between 100, well, the investor will pay 170. They're happy. They got the discount they wanted. You've agreed at 100. So the 70,000 is the difference. And that is your fee. So rather than charging the standard rate in the UK, it's about 3 to 4, maybe £5,000.
mhm.
If you do it in this structure, you can get big fees,
Okay.
which will allow you to invest. And a lot of the time, rather than taking that money out, you just take on properties from
And
that same project.
you speak about the UK, but this is something that's versatile and it
This
can be
is
done in the
everywhere, everywhere.
US or Australia or other nations as well. I mean,
Mhm.
it also depends on how developed the housing codes and real estate codes are within that nation. That can allow you to do such a big project. But I'm also thinking about developing nations like Albania, where development and real estate, it's growing, but it's truly not as legitimized and structured as it should be, or as we're used to, maybe.
Mhm.
So, how could someone listening to you in Albania go around and create arbitrage agreements or become a wholesaler if that system doesn't exist? Should they just start it?
I know someone which I've met 3 days ago that's
Mhm.
actually doing it in Albania. It's
Doing
undercover,
what? Can you specify
rent
exactly
to
what?
rent. They are renting apartments and
Yeah,
then
for
renting
Airbnb.
on
I know
Airbnb.
this. I know this. A lot of people do that for Airbnb. What I'm talking about is wholesaling.
Okay, explain that to me because I'm not too familiar with the
So,
term.
for example, the process you explained in the UK where you source the deals and then you can get discounts up to 50% or so, if
Yeah.
you're selling multiple properties, dozens of properties, that whole system comes with a package of a country that is able to kind of replicate it? If it doesn't exist, how does one go about creating it in a new space? Like, for example, in Albania.
I wish I knew.
Mhm.
I would do it myself.
But there you go.
Uh,
I think if you have a problem, business is the solution. So,
yeah, look, real estate is such a big industry. There's so many things that you can do. Going just into the rent to rents, because I kind of skipped through that. For someone who's starting out, who wants to replace their work income and get into real estate, I say it's the best strategy in the world for building cash flow, replacing your income, and making it passive. I spent 1 hour every 6 months on my portfolio managing it. It was completely passive. I didn't need to deal with it. So if you are looking at getting into real estate with a low entry, high cash flow, I would look at rent to rent as a strategy. You can do it no money down if you know what you're doing. You can, if with the right systems and script, you can systemize your business. Do it very simply. You can do it with a full-time job as well.
yeah,
I
most
see
people
people
do.
leaving their jobs to do business. Incorrect. Like X, don't do that. Go and do your business whilst you're working, replace your
Exactly.
income, then get into business. That's the smarter way.
Very good point. Because in many places, your income is a qualification, an entry point, whether it be to even rent a property or to buy it, if that's the route that you want to go to, or to get business lending. So definitely strategize. It's harder because people are so eager to just leave and they don't want, 9 to 5s or office jobs, which, there's a reason behind that. But that's a good point. Rock, I'll let you kind of segue us into a different portion of the talk and the interview, which is getting to know a bit about Endrit.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And then we usually do this thing where we try to get back into the Albanian flow of it, where you come from, what you like, what we enjoy. The first thing I always love to ask is, what is your favorite Albanian food?
Oh, favorite Albanian food. It's got to be burek me mish.
Burek memesh?
that, that's the
I
one for
like
me.
that. I like that. But now, when your mom makes it or from a restaurant?
Depends which restaurant, but definitely
I
Mum's
love
one
that.
is
I'm
the
just
one.
messing with you. It's always mom's way or no way.
Speaking about like moms and family, how did your family react to kind of you venturing out and doing your own thing when it came to work and income and business?
I'm going to share this very openly. Everyone was completely against what I'm doing. They thought I'm absolutely nuts. They said to me, "You are crazy. You're wasting your time." And pretty
Can I
much
tell
not
you?
directly, but indirectly, this guy's going to be a loser.
Oh
My
Can
brother's
I?
in university finishing his psychology degree, and I'm here thinking of business, and I haven't even got a qualification. So that was that's what they saw.
Yeah.
But
That's
now, as I got some results and they saw me working hard, they weren't not supportive. They supported me, but they didn't believe that I could do such a thing. When I got
yeah.
my
I
first deal, that's when I got, they knew it's serious.
I think that's a common Albanian thing. I've since to realize that in most of our interviews, like there's no belief until you're really getting the ball rolling, and then they're like, "All right, he's working, she's doing it. I think we have to trust him." So
I
that
think
is
Yeah.
awesome.
a lot of it may also come from the idea that, unfortunately, and it's really sad, people tend to believe only what they've seen and what they can imagine. And oftentimes you can sit down and explain something to someone over and over again that you've seen work, that you've been able to do, but they just can't conceptualize it because their brain can't think at that capacity. And it's a matter of belief,
Yeah.
self-esteem, and imagination. So oftentimes, if your environment isn't believing that very passionate image and vision that you have, there's nothing wrong with you. You're probably in the wrong environment, but you're serving as an inspirational point to kind of change those generational ideas and serve as a starting point for others too. So props to you for doing that, and props to all of us for doing it in our own capacity. To go back to Albania though, where is your family from in Albania or Kosovo?
My dad's from a farmland, a canton called Grabovs, which is near a city called Fushkosov. My mom's from Pristina,
I know where
from a place
that.
called Marets, actually. But they moved to Pristina quite early. So that's the two areas I would say.
It's
Pristina
pretty
and
close
Marets.
though, right? Fushkasov is close to Pristine.
Yeah, I mean
It
it's
is. Mhm.
pretty much one line. It's 10
Yeah,
minutes, 10, 15 minutes away. So
yeah.
Okay. And do
yeah.
you go back often?
I try to spend half the year in Kosovo, Albania, and half the year in England.
As you should.
I'm trying to extend that 6 months to slightly more in Albania because I do prefer it, in all honesty.
I
Yeah,
wonder.
I love my culture. I love the culture. I'm very family oriented. Spend a lot of time with my family. I'm not running around all the time. I do work, but I do everything's done on my phone. So
Mhm.
this whole idea of you don't have a life when you're in business is not true in my
That's
opinion.
really
If you
not true.
systemize it properly, I might work 18 hours in a day, but I work whilst I'm going out, whilst I'm having a coffee and I'm finishing projects.
Yeah, I think business buys you time and freedom if you do it
Absolutely.
And
right.
not and out of Albania and Kosovo, where's your favorite place besides like your hometown to go hang out, to go visit, to go your favorite beach, your favorite area?
Favorite beach has to be Xamil in near Sarand, definitely.
Okay.
Favorite place when I go to the beach to go out, I would say Vlor. Vlor is fantastic.
Okay.
And obviously Pristine as in city, Tirana and Pristine, I can't say one's better than the other for me.
Okay. I wanted to ask you, you mentioned that you like staying in Albania and you prefer it over the years, even though you're born in the UK. What do you like about Albanian culture so our viewers can kind of have a snippet of what that's like?
I mean, Albanians are very welcoming. So everyone's very welcoming. They're very friendly. We have a very big community there. So everyone gets together. We spend a lot of time together. England, you can create that, but it's not really the same, I would say. It's a very nice country, very nice city, London as well, especially for business. But it's not, I feel it's missing
Mhm.
that culture,
Mhm.
especially because I'm Albanian myself, connecting with my people, that's is a deeper connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also maybe the sunlight
Yeah, oh,
and
100%.
having over 300 days of sunshine a year in comparison
I,
to
I came I came from sunshine. As soon as I landed in London, it was heavy rain, and
uh,
I was
Depression.
like, I need to get my ticket back. Yeah.
that's a good point.
Uh,
What
oh
I
man.
think about when I think of the UK and the discussions in the UK, especially the public discourse in the past 2, 3 years, there's been, quite honestly, xenophobic sentiments in different political spheres targeted towards Albanians. And so much of it, actually, all of it is disinformation. And it's
Yeah.
used for one form of leniency or another, depending on where you want to get in the social political game. But it has created waves, and people do feel like they're mislabeled when Albanians in the UK are exceptionally hardworking, they're academically minded, or they're business focused like you. Have you felt that at all? And what do you think can be done to kind of just eliminate that perception, which is totally fake?
I think it's slowly being exposed as a lie as more people are traveling to Albania, and there's a lot of positive feedback coming back. I've seen many friends of mine that are not Albanian that have gone to Albania on a trip, and they said we're definitely going to come back. And it's more and more people are traveling and seeing the reality. Yeah, I mean, I don't hang around with people that are negative. I stay away from
Good.
that. As you say, the environment's important. It's
Mhm.
actually vital. With the wrong environment, you cannot succeed at all. Forget about it.
That's really true.
So I try
Yeah.
to stay around positive people all the time. But yeah, I think the more people start traveling and seeing what Albania is really like, then they'll see for themselves.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've realized in London too, there really is a lot of Albanians, and there's literally coffee shops, restaurants. department stores. Like there's everything is really Albanian owned. It's like going to Arthur Avenue here in the Bronx where everything is Albanian. I feel like 50% of London is Albanian.
It's
There's a
It's
very
lot of
amazing.
us. There's a lot of
Oh
us.
yeah.
It's all in like locations. So I think it's with
Where?
other cultures as well.
Where
In
are the Albanian locations in the UK?
Hey,
Not just
you got to
London.
tell us.
Oh, there's loads. I mean, there's the Kosovan Albanians in Swiss Cottage. Then there is Golders Green. I'm trying to remember all these names now. What's that place called? Barking,
I've been to
Wood
Barking.
Green.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a few. There's a few places. I might be missing some, but those I would say those are quite popular, and you'll see the
Bromley.
barber shops are Albanians. The food there, you'll find
I've been to
everything.
London, and honestly,
Yeah.
although we joke about the weather and all, it's a great city. And
Yeah.
my cousin lives there, and when I visited her and her family, we had the most amazing time. We went to Sexy Fish. I think everyone goes to Sexy Fish. It's not really like unique, but just being able to experience the city and the multitude of cultures that exist was astonishing for me. And I got to go to Shakespeare's Globe, which was like a dream for me since I was a kid. So yeah,
Oh wow.
definitely a good choice to raise your kids, I think, obviously, since your parents moved there and you turned out really well. But for the future, would you see yourself living full time in Albania or potentially just being a global nomad and working from there?
I think I can't stay in one place for too long, but
What's your sign?
definitely my
What's your
I
horoscope sign?
I'm July the 12th, whatever that is. I'm not. I don't
I'm not
look at the horoscope.
A
Cancer,
cancer.
sure if you're
Cancer,
Cancer
Yeah.
Cancer.
or not or
No,
Leo.
I'm a
You're
Cancer.
Cancer.
I'm a Cancer. I just
Yeah.
Cancer.
remembered. Yeah. I don't know how that ties in with anything, but
It's a fun point to know about you. And just like the fact that you like Mish Burek, what does that tie into when it comes to real estate? It's something cool to know about you for our audience.
yeah, no, I can't
Oh,
stay in one place. But Albania is definitely one of the primary residents. I wouldn't say I don't live in Albania right now either. I
Okay,
live there and in England. I've got two homes.
that's great. As you should. And hopefully maybe you'll have one in Kosovo as well, which is where your forefathers are from.
When I
Um,
say Albania, I mean
you mean Albania. You mean the
the
okay.
big
Albania that
Albania,
we
big
know.
Cypriotnik, the
Yeah.
big
Yeah,
Albania.
that I always say Albania too
Yeah.
as well. For the whole thing.
Yeah. So that's what I mean. It's all one, in my opinion.
Good.
Yeah.
I like that. I like the sound of that, Endrit.
That's great. So, Endrit, when are you going to come to the US and give some real estate seminars?
I've actually been speaking to someone. I'm not going to say their name just yet, but
Okay.
I'm making some plans to do something in Albania and to do something in the US as well, and just give advice. I'd like to target a lot of the Albanian audience, but also others as well, and give them opportunities to learn and get involved in business. I feel like everyone should be free. They should have an opportunity to work when they feel like working. They should have that option and be able to enjoy life and their hobbies. So I definitely want to do something that will benefit not just the Albanian community, but people from all around the world and get them in a position where they can have passive income and then decide what they want to do with their life.
That's amazing. And that's a noble pursuit that I think will affect the lives of many people. So keep doing that. Freedom is
For
great.
sure. I agree.
Rock, did you have any other questions for Endrit while we still have some time?
I don't have any more questions. I just like to say, it is very interesting what you're doing. Um, I've never personally heard of any of this rental stuff until now, so this is very new and fresh to me. What's one word of advice you'd give to somebody starting out in this world today? Like anybody random, not Albanian, anything, just anybody starting in this world today. What's the one thing you'll have them look out for?
Well, let's make this interesting. What is something that you guys want to accomplish as a goal or a dream in your lives? One each. So, Rock, you get one, and Dea, you tell me something. One dream that you'd like to
I don't
achieve.
like limitations. See, you go
One
first.
dream. If I had one dream, um, I just
There
want
is
to
no
be the guy that,
limitations, by the way, but just
yeah.
I'm saying, let's say within the next 12 months, right?
Go ahead.
Oh my God. Within the next 12 months, my biggest dream is to have my own podcast studio where every single person I want could come to my podcast studio and feel at home. There we go.
Amazing. They are.
I don't have any dreams. I've achieved all my dreams. I'm joking. I have goals. I think I have like goals with plans. And maybe that's a conversation to be better had offline.
Okay, fair enough. Well, my advice for anyone starting out is find someone that's done what you want to do.
Mhm.
That's, I mean, you go to school, you learn from the teacher. You know, you go, you play soccer, football. I hate calling it soccer. And you get a coach, and the coach teaches you how to play, right? But
Yep.
then you get in business, you don't go into business and you don't just go into business. You need to find someone to coach you and mentor you and help you.
You know,
Same thing with anything.
that's a good point, you know, and I think it's a great selling strategy for you because you are a mentor. So you want people to work with you, obviously. And I understand that because I also sell services and coaching online, but in a different category, more in the professional services and academic services realm. But my question is this: there are many people that just kind of start and they have an initiative and they have a mentality of like learning along the way. So would you discourage those people from starting if they aren't necessarily working with someone?
I wouldn't discourage it. I would just say that they'll realize that they need to get someone 99% of the time. It's very, you're making your life harder
Mhm.
in that sense. It's like the, you know, in my family at least, like my dad, for example, if he doesn't see you sweating from work, then it doesn't count.
Oh
But it's
God.
like,
I
you
love
know,
it.
you're making your life harder for no reason.
Yeah.
It doesn't always have to be paid either. You can go and work for someone. You learn, just find a route. It's not
That's
about
very
making
true.
excuses. Just find
Yeah,
a way
just,
to do things.
good point. And I'm just applying a bit of pressure to see how strong you can stay to your guns. So that was a good answer. We like to do that here. Endrit, thank you so much for being on today and for giving us a rundown of what you do, who you are, and the passion and inspiration that brings you to doing what you do. I want to know, where can people find you if they want to book a session with you or have you mentor them?
They can see me on my Instagram. Is Endrit MJ. So ENDRIT MJ. And you can find me on Instagram. I give a lot of free resources and videos, so you don't need to pay for anything up front. Go and watch, learn, and then if it's something you want to get involved in, you could speak with me or the team. You know, there's no issue with that. But there's many ways. Make sure you find something you're passionate about, and then go out there and do it.
I love that.
Awesome. Thank you, Endrit. And that
Thank you.
wraps up this episode of DGXM podcast. We'll catch you guys next time.